told you guys I am an urban farmer. My name is Keisha Cobb. What I didn't tell you is that I'm a triplet. It's 3 of me, okay? 2 girls and a boy. I also have a set of twin brothers. They were identical. We were not identical. I was adopted at birth. We call her mother. I call her my real mama, the one that adopted us. She was helping to raise our biological mom, Mary, right? In East St. Louis. Most dilapidated city in America, Lord. I remember that city when I was little. I don't know why mother let us go to East St. Louis every summer, but it was great for personal development, okay? I was a tomboy. I still am. I love being outside, dragging the tree limbs after the tornadoes in Little Rock, figuring out what kind of animals and stuff grow in them. You know, why does this sappy stuff grow off of the tree and it looks like bubble gum? And Grandma was my accomplice. So Grandma, she was a heavy lady. She had diabetes. I didn't know what diabetes was then, but I was providing care for her. So I would massage her legs. I remember back in the day, we didn't have all the fancy devices, so she would get a butter knife and scrape the skin off the bottom of her feet after I soaked them, right? Because of poor circulation from diabetes, in which I just announced earlier that I conquered about 2 years ago. I'm still pretty good with my A1C, the amount of sugar that's in my blood over the course of 3 months. I learned so much about it before I knew what it was when I was a little girl. So this segues into me being a farmer. I started growing my own food after being completely food insecure about 13 years ago after a divorce. I moved back to Arkansas, and I had to choose between a pack of hot dogs, which was like $1.50, and gas in the car to take my son to school. And I got irritated. I'm in the grocery store, all of these beautiful fruits and vegetables are on the aisles, and to get them, I gotta steal them because I don't have the money, right? And so I left. I went home and I was a single mom. I sat and I'm thinking, how can I fix this, right? And I called somebody. Can you take my son? Can you take him to school for the rest of this week? I'm working something out. And I was thinking when I saw all those bright colors, this stuff is free to me. This stuff comes out of the ground. And they charging us for it. But because it is a controlled system, I gotta buy it. So now I'm like, well, I don't have money to buy seeds. And YouTube wasn't really big then on teaching everybody how to grow stuff. So I had to get books. I would go to the bookstore. I would get the magazines and thumb through them all. I found some free seeds. I think at the libraries in each city got free seeds. They ain't free because your tax dollars paying for it, okay? Go get the seeds. I started where I was in the season I was in with what I had. I didn't have a grant, okay? And that is one of my virtues that I feel. You can take me down to nothing, okay? And I know how to build from there. I think we are all in that situation. In the black community, as a black farmer, as a black person, we got that in our DNA. So now sometimes we will covet grants. And if I post something or have a free workshop, in which I do about every month, if it's about money, thousands of people registering. If it's about attending a conference or a farm number, a couple hundred register. But if it's about money, we running. I need you guys to know that your land is your grant. If you have some land, because I started when I didn't have any. I didn't have a place to stay. I was technically homeless. I was staying with my mom. Didn't want to be living there. I'm almost 40 at the time. And so I started farming in other people's backyards. I was like, I'm not going to let this system tell me no, right? I knew nothing about USDA. This was just, I just got my first farm number 3 years ago. So there are organizations that get paid to provide technical assistance, millions of dollars, right? And they didn't reach me. So I started doing the reaching. That's my story. I started doing it without funding. And USDA was like, are you a technical assistance provider? I was like, nope, but I can be. What's that? I was having Zoom calls and classes and inviting USDA, y'all. They was attending. Because I was in their meetings and I learned this information. I was like, now y'all gave out $62 million last year for Equip. Now, he was talking about those payments that the big farmers get. This is the reason why I promote small farm, okay? Arkansas is the top, it's the 4th highest paid state for EQIP. EQIP is Environmental Quality Incentive Program, okay? We are adding quality to the environment. They're incentivizing us to do it. It's much needed. We have a lot of rice farmers in Arkansas, but we grow way more soybeans than rice. We're just known for rice. Way more. We do generate $23 billion a year in agriculture sales. Arkansas, okay? Most food insecure state in America. So I was like, can small farmers get this? They said, yeah. So I started teaching people at their house how to grow the right way, how to eat it the right way, how to cook it, you know what I'm saying, preserve it the right way. Because just because you grow potatoes and you feel good about it, you don't need to eat them like that. Okay? It's straight energy. And after you eat, you're doing this right here. We sitting down. Our body is like, okay, cool. We just ate enough fuel to walk 5 miles. We're going to walk 5 miles. We ain't walk 5 miles. So it stores its fat. First place it's going to store is here. That's the first place. That's a diabetes gut. Okay? And then sometimes you get atrophy. You'll start losing muscle. Wondering why your legs are smaller, right? And so, a little testimony, I had slimmed down. I'm like, I'm gonna do the RDLs. Y'all know on Facebook we doing the little, exercise to build your booty up and stuff. That is very important, very, very important. We lose muscle as we get older, okay? But I'm like, okay, I'll be all right. I'm gonna be all right, because as Black women, we used to our cushion everywhere, right? I lost my cushion. Okay, so with diabetes, I can control my weight and my blood sugar with this. Yeah. But it starts here. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I don't like it. I don't like the way it's going right now. I'm not building muscle fast enough. So I'm going to go a week and just eat stuff I'm not supposed to eat. I did. And I feel back out, and then this came back. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm being candid. You got to put up with a little bit of gut to have your butt. I don't like that. That is indicative of metabolic distress, though. As Black women, we're very hippie, big thighs and stuff. Your hips can be this wide. If your stomach is flat and your waist is smaller, doctors will tell you that is not a precursor for diabetes. If your stomach starts getting fat, you're in metabolic distress. So I say that because this relates to farming. When I found out I had type 2 diabetes 2 years ago, I was floored. I've always walked, worked out. I ate fairly healthy, but what I was drinking was killing me. Sugary drinks, and I was addicted to them. Okay? Y'all, it's this Ohana fruit punch. Woo! And then it's this stuff called Mexican punch that the Mexicans make, and they let it ferment a little bit, and it's so sweet, and I would just sit up and drink it and drink it and drink it. I wasn't educated. I didn't know that consuming sugar makes you crave more. You're feeding the wrong microbes and you're throwing off everything. And I got sick one day. I didn't have enough energy to lift my head. None. Go to the doctor. I can't see. It's blurry on the way there. It's syrup in my eyes, literally. That's why when we get 40, we're going to need some glasses. Actually, you messed your pancreas up, and you're not processing insulin effectively, and the sugar has clogged your, capillaries in your eyes. So I get there, and he's like, what you think you got, Keisha? Because he know I research everything. I said, well, all my symptoms are indicative of diabetes, but I don't think I have. He said, you type 2 diabetic. Watch your carbs and sugar. Here goes 7 prescriptions. I was like, okay. I try not to cry in there because I'm like, I'm finna die. I'm gonna die. Everybody I know, they get stuff cut off. And on the way home, I was like 2 weeks. Now keep in mind, I've been farming, eating my own food, juicing, riding my bike every day, and I still developed diabetes. But I was doing it the wrong way. So when I started doing my research, I did take the insulin. I did take the medicine, okay? And insulin keeps you fat. That's what insulin does. Insulin opens the insulin receptors in each cell, and then it drags the sugar into it so we can process it in the mitochondria for energy, right? If your insulin is resisted in the cells, you have no energy because the sugar is floating around outside of the cells. That's what happened to me. So for 2 weeks, I studied like crazy. Guess what the answer was? Eat cruciferous vegetables. I was like, okay, cruciferous, because I never heard of them being referred to like that. And when the list came up, I almost cried because I'm like, I ain't gonna be able to afford this. All of that is in my backyard. Leafy, green vegetables. So I needed to know how. That's why I said, listening to your nutritionist, you're just listening. When she tells you something, research it down to the last molecule, okay? So I needed to know how cruciferous vegetables will help me heal from diabetes. It has fiber, in which in nature, fiber is always accompanied with sugar. Always, either a lot of fiber or a threat. Bees, a threat. This goes back to farming and the environment. I need y'all to know this when you're growing what you're growing, okay? Don't plant a whole bunch of fruit trees, in which there is fiber in the apples, right? But I can receive the same benefits of an apple without the risk of the sugar. Because we developed apples to be super sweet. We developed strawberries, watermelons, bananas, and everything else to be too sweet. So these are not the fruits that we started with. So I took that show on the road with me with urban agriculture. Our communities are too sick. We show up to these conferences and these meetings and we're sick. Watch us. At the airport, the men looked pregnant. Young men. The women, we're just kind of bulky. We're producing too much testosterone. They're producing too much estrogen. It's linked to insulin resistance and all this stuff we're eating. So I want you guys to grow food, grow gardens. Please do not gatekeep information. This is what I require. When I give you the game, spread the love. It is not going to be what, let me tell you something. If you got a big old pretty garden, and sugar go to Shinola, and you didn't tell your community how to grow food too, it's going to be a problem. We have to get out of that spirit. So, write this down. Everybody needs a farm number. Your auntie, your mama, if they have a house, if they have some land, get a farm number. And back to what Thaddaus was saying about air property, you can't get a farm number with air property, boo. That cut us out of funding, right?
It does, but they have since reformed it. So if you hire a manager of the estate or an estate manager, now you can have a farm number. So you can get one. But that's something that just recently happened under the Uniform Property, Heirs Property Act.
Yeah.
So these are all opportunities, like she said, that we just try to give the game and spread the information.
And most people don't know that. But they kind of caught up with me, USDA did. Because I remember my brother, so you know, I told you we were adopted. Mother took the two girls, the twins. Her best friend and husband took the boy. So we could all grow up together, and we did. Okay? So Kevin and his family lived on a whole bunch of land. We could walk out the backyard and walk up to soybeans. At the time, I didn't know it was soybeans. They were not farming that. It was they just said the white man farms it. How? This is air property. Because they have a contract. Even if one person signs that contract, they have interest in their property, they can legally sign a contract with somebody. Somebody take that contract, get a farm number.
And that's how we lose property in the heirs property. If you have one person, he has just as much right with that little piece as everybody. So that's how we end up losing, and they can force the sale. It's called fractionalized interest. It is, and you can lose your interest. And some people who are predatory can start going to each. If all of y'all own this piece of land right here, and I get them, hey, I'm gonna give you $1,000. I'm gonna give you $500. I ain't gave nobody else $500. You know what I'm saying? Just sign this warranty deed. You're warranting all of your interest to me. I got just as many rights as y'all do, and I get him. I got more rights than this. And I'll go do a quiet title suit at the courthouse. Y'all didn't show up. It's mine. All of it is mine. She can even farm and harvest and don't have to give you anything. That's right. You can't sue her. That's right. You can't do anything. So the,
Is that state or county
That's period.
It's changes, and each state has a different different thing on it. But the Uniform Heirs Property Act is changing, and in Mississippi they are fighting it because they don't want it. So
right,
it's a whole thing, and we lose so much money as a result.
The reason why they're fighting, I'm gonna tell y'all, when it comes to agriculture, being involved in policy is important. We can't just grow if we don't know our state reps, or if we don't like them, we're gonna replace them. We don't know our mayors, because I need to be. Matter of fact, I got access to 10 acres of land. Who, you the mayor?
No.
Okay, run for mayor.
Do y'all know that the Georgia Public Service Commission election?
So what's the Public Service Commission? Here, tell what we don't have a Public Service Commission.
Truth be told, I ain't sure.
Is that a county?
But they say they
yeah. Okay, yeah, we have that. And a couple years ago, a black woman. Now in Arkansas, they're appointed by the governor. I don't like that. Politicians can change that process, though. If we vote the right people in, they will float a bill and make this an election instead of an appointed position.
I've been trying to get people to go and vote because here there are 5 Republicans on that board. There's not a Democrat in there, and there's not a black person to be seen.
So when you get understood, because I've worked with political campaigns and trying to get us to vote, look at the statistics, and when you look at the statistics, is this statewide?
Yeah.
Okay, you need to know it's called Act Blue, I believe. Act Blue is a Democratic application, and it can show you how many Democrats vote where, who's not voting, how many people are registered. You can get strategic, because just telling people to register is one thing, but in my city, I know only half of the folks that's registered vote. I'm not gonna go beg the people that don't vote to vote. I'm gonna go get some 18-year-olds just coming out of high school, niece, nephew, this was going on, I need you to register to vote, and this is why you need to vote for this person. Okay, we got a plan, we're gonna have a barbecue, after y'all come vote, come over, period. Attach the culture to it, educate them. Get some young people, that's how we do in marketing.
Well, that's what I've been trying to do, is get young people to vote, but
do that. Give them a plan. And guess
they got this crazy notion that their vote doesn't count
everywhere.
And I've also tried to tell them also a lot of these black guys have felonies, but they met all the requirements.
If they off papers and they done paid them fines.
But it is so hard to get people to understand that if you off papers and stuff and you've done what you were supposed to do, you can register to vote.
Don't fight with them people. Get the new ones. I go through the same thing with farm numbers. I'm gonna show you, okay? Because last year you attended my Zoom call and you was like, I ain't gonna do that. She trying to get the people in my business. Now I have a $40,000 contract, and it's not a grant with NRCS. It's financial assistance, okay, to carry out conservation practices, and you don't. And now I can step into Farm Fortitude info. With that contract, I can go to our partners that I have built a relationship with over the last year, and they will give me a loan to install those practices, take educational courses, everything I need to go into agribusiness. And that's what we need to do, y'all. With your backyard, you qualify for CSP. Make sure you write that down, Conservation Stewardship Program. Because some people, you have to be strategic as to what you're going to apply for. So I know you've been growing in your backyard for at least a year, and it's irrigated. You got some water that you can spray on it, okay? Yeah. So right now, do you have room for a greenhouse or a high tunnel? Okay, so you need to decide if you want to apply for them to provide you with high tunnel and all this other nice stuff, irrigation. It's like a greenhouse, the plastic hoop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at buying one.
No. They'll help you out with that. They'll help you out. Like the old folks say, they'll help you out. Okay? So you decide if you want to apply for an EQIP, EQIP. And y'all can Google all this afterwards. EQIP. If you're gonna apply for EQIP, EQIP is the program that helps you install conservation practices by pretty much reimbursing you the money that you spent on the stuff. Don't be bothered by, okay, if they approve you for $10,000, don't be bothered to say, I don't have $10,000, because we got the partners that will pay for that for you. And then USDA gets with them and reimburses them. So you don't have to come out of pocket. I literally wrote that program after attending state technical meetings across the nation, listening to farmers, listening to state conservationists. That's the person that's over NRCS for your state. And I'm like, this is the biggest barrier for us. This is a barrier for me. We're gonna come up with $10,000, right? So you're deciding if you want to install practices, or if you like the way your setup is and you want them to pay you to carry out conservation. Two different things. EQIP installs practices. CSP incentivizes you financially to carry out conservation, right? Meaning, I have an EQIP contract and a CSP contract. The EQIP contract, by the end of the year, I am going to install the biggest high tunnel they have. I'm so excited because I get to get a cistern. Y'all know what a cistern is? Yeah, it's a big plastic tank that sits above ground or below ground. I have been wanting one of those for years. It collects water.
I want to.
You can get, so they are real big, but you can get some that's about this size though. Right. And EQIP will pay for that because that's water conservation. Remember he was talking about all of the water that they use on farms? Yeah. I collect rainwater in my house now. Okay. I do too. That's a conservation practice you can get paid for. But if I have this big cistern, 1,000 gallons, you ain't gonna be able to tell me nothing. Nothing. Now, that's non-potable water, meaning that can go to everything that I'm growing. If I want to drink it, there's a certain type of filtration system I need to put on there, register it with my city, county, or state, and then it can be potable. I'm doing it because I want to be able to do too.
Land size? Minimum amount of land?
There is no minimum amount of land size. No, ma'am. You can grow in this amount of land and get you a farm number. So you don't have to make these decisions now because I do have a Zoom call coming up on June 28th. That I will, Thaddaus, how can we get everybody the link so they can register? Oh, no.
So we got, did everybody sign in on the sign-in sheet?
Mm-hmm.
We'll email you the link, and I texted, I think I texted it. Did everybody get the?
And really everybody in here can,
my digital card and the podcast.
Yeah, okay.
So I just try to cut that step out for you so you can get that.
Yeah.
And then our website is 10kaf.org. 10kaf.org.
And he might be on the call if you're available.
10kva.com.
Yeah. So I'll try to get y'all the link before I leave to register for that Zoom call. I'll walk you through the actual application. It looks intimidating, but honestly, it's about 10 questions for the farm number. I'll walk you through the actual application for conservation assistance. It's not a lot of information. So you have to decide if you want to install practices with EQIP. That's stuff that you come up out of your pocket for up front and then get reimbursed. Or if you're already farming, you like your setup, and you just want a CSP contract and get payments every year for 5 years. Okay? Me, I'll eventually have both on one property, but right now I have CSP at one property because I like the way my backyard looked. I didn't want a high tunnel. I had built a wood frame greenhouse, right? But I was carrying out so many conservation practices, I qualify for CSP, so I do get $4,000 a year for 5 years. The more land you have, the more you can get paid. And Thaddaus was telling me the other day they can add to your value. Now, some of these practices, if y'all go through the program with us, we make sure you install them to where they are permanent fixtures or they're installed effectively, and it is adding to the value of your land or your house.
Because sometimes it's depending on how it's affixed, it's not counted. It's just considered personal property. But if it's affixed properly, it's considered a fixture, and it can increase your property value. So you're looking at two different things. You got value in use versus value in exchange. So sometimes you can have additional value. Sometimes you're just going to use it, and that's where you're going to get the value. But sometimes the way it's affixed, you can actually increase the property value. And she actually demonstrated 4 or 5 conservation practices that we just witnessed here in the garden.
Yep.
You know, one was the wall, and what was that called?
The wall, the trees?
The tree wall.
Yeah, it's a wind barrier.
Yeah,
it's a wind barrier.
Was a wind barrier.
Yep.
And then the
compost facility.
Was a
compost facility 317 is the conservation practice number.
And then there was 2 more that you talked about.
The garden beds.
The garden beds
was another one. And
practice.
pollinator habitat, the flowers that's up front.
So
on the other side of the
got
fence.
stuff because we might call it a garden as opposed to a farm, but the uses can be beneficial, and especially if you follow through with what she's talking about as far as getting your farm number. So that's what's really critical.
So in closing, I want you guys to, these are things that are important. One, we're building a database of black farmers in America. Our goal is to add 1 million black women in ag and 1 million black men in ag, okay? Registered farmers. If it's 3 million white farmers, we already farming. All we have to do is get a farm number, okay? So you can visit blackwomeninag.com or blackmeninag.com. We have the Facebook group is amazing because I have trained a lot of them. They've attended my workshops over the last couple of years. A lot of the ladies and the guys know what a conservation practice is. They know how to get a farm number. They know about grants that I'll tell everyone about. And so when they ask questions in the group, they get things done, or if they're having a problem with USDA, and which is very common. Sometimes they're not like, hey, come in, I'm gonna let you get a farm number so you can have access to this funding. We get some people denied farm numbers.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
And that's part of what the barrier has been from the USDA and the FSA and us not being able to get the information and the access that happens locally. And the information that she is providing is very critical to break down those barriers and open up the opportunities, because the information is power, and that's what we have been working on. And since we didn't, she's big on the non-traditional stuff in order to get access to capital. We were denied funding, and so because we were denied funding, we're actually getting it out of the mud. We are earning it from doing appraisals for churches, doing appraisals for farmers, doing reconsideration of value, doing property tax appeal. This is all stuff that we do anyway in our training for, but to be able to partner up with her, Jeffrey, Byron, to be able to bring this information to you all is what our mission is and what's so important.
Awesome. Blackwomeninag.com. So you're county specific. You have to apply in your county. So when you go to Farm Service Agency website, there's a little tool that helps you find your office in your county. When I tell people how to apply for farm numbers, I tell them to email it. I have rarely been in a USDA office for assistance. I email.
Okay.
The only ones I talk to on phones are the ones I know.
Email gives you a record that you actually did.
Okay.
It does. It
Yeah,
proves.
because on here when I Google, it says you have to visit your local farm service.
They always say that.
Okay.
I did not visit,
Okay.
and it was because I'm glad it happened like that. I applied in 21 when things were still limited because of COVID. And he was like, just email me. So I did that. I emailed him the deed. I had to wait another 3 weeks for him to say, okay, we verified it. Right, please fill this out. And so I looked, I was like, okay, it still is not easy to find the CPA 1200. Every government form has a number that's approved by OMB, okay?
Right.
So it's hard to find the freaking customer data worksheet because it's not called farm number app. It's called customer data worksheet. So what I did was streamline the process and start having Zoom calls nationwide. Say, sis, bro, what you do is fill this application out, because you can form fill it. You can type in there. You need to sign with either your finger or a pen. Don't type your name in there, okay? And then send them that and a copy of your deed. That's it. Hey, how you doing? I'm applying for my farm number. Thanks. We ain't got nothing else to talk about.
What if you don't have a deed? Do you have to send your agreement?
Any kind, that paperwork we were talking about earlier that proves that you have legal control. Now, I'm of some land. I'm gonna tell you who to send it to, because I like to go straight to the horse's mouth. And we're gonna send it to the executive director, not the executive director. I've done that before too, but the county director, the FSA county director. So I'm gonna let you deal with your employees, because I don't know if they like me. When you call them, you don't know what kind of day them people have had. You see what I'm saying? And I get a little anxiety, because if I'm gonna call you in good faith, and if you start talking to me crazy, now I'm discouraged. I don't want a farm number.
Okay, now one more thing, it says on here that we have to have an EIN number. Do you have to have an EIN number?
What website is that? No, you don't. What website is
For
that?
Georgia, it says documents you will need will include a photo ID, social security card, EIN number, and proof of land ownership, like a deed, lease, or rental agreement. Meetings usually take between 30 minutes and an hour.
That's misleading.
Okay.
And see, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Because some people, I provide technical assistance in a different way. Now that you told me that, I'm going to talk to the executive director for FSA for the state. I already know them. I know the guys at NRCS. They need to fix that on the website. If you're going to apply for a farm number in your business's name, in which I suggest you do it, ain't nothing but a DBA, ain't nothing but a LLC, ain't nothing but a nonprofit. EIN is free. The IRS website, okay? If you are going to apply in your business's name, that's when you have to have an EIN. But reading that, it makes you feel or think that you have to have one. So I have one in my personal name. I got that $40,000 one in my personal name. And you do pay taxes on that money that they give you, okay? You do pay taxes on that EQIP program, that money.
Can you hit the Schedule F real quick too?
Yep, I can. If you apply for it in your business's name, you're just going to put your EIN where they ask for it, or if it's in your personal name, your Social Security where they ask for it. And it's very important to state that, yes, I'm black and I'm a female. I tell people, don't get woke. Don't get woke on this application, because that messes our numbers up. You black, African American, okay? And email that to the FSA county director. People have gotten farm numbers in 5 minutes. 1 hour via email. You do not have to go down there, and it is preferred that you email these people, because all communication, don't let them tell you to call them, okay? I'm at work right now, please correspond via email, thank you. Because if they tell you something wrong, and I just called up some people in Florida, they've been denying people farm numbers left and right. I don't know what's going on, but they know about Keisha Cobb and Black Women in Ag. Because everybody on the people that ain't got nothing to do with it on the email. Like, hey, we have a farmer that applied for a farm number. Unfortunately, you gave them some wrong information. Here's a screenshot and a printout of your email. I have copied some folks from Washington, my friend so-and-so, who's retired FSA, also your state outreach director, and this person, that person, that person, that person. We got NRCS on the email as well. We love to hear how this is going to go, okay? Because you just disenfranchised this farmer, and she was trying to apply for the mass program, and she was trying to apply for this program. That's how they keep y'all from getting funding. So, a Schedule F is, yes ma'am.
Why, you said you had both phone numbers. How do you leverage them differently based on?
Yeah, one is in my nonprofit's name, and one is in my personal name, right? And there are limitations as to how much money you can get from EQIP, from the USDA period, every year. It's approved with the Farm Bill, right? And so that's how you can leverage it. Like, I can get $400,000 a year as a maximum with EQIP across all programs. That's across the United States. So if I have 10 contracts, in which they don't limit you to how many conservation contracts you have. If I have them and they total up to $400,000 a year, that's my cap. I can't get more.
That's under one.
That's under one. I can do that with a nonprofit, and then I can do that with just me. But understand that what I'm doing on that land is way more important than their money. We can't eat money. So what we're doing is mitigating climate change, all the tornadoes and flooding and stuff. More of us need to do this. So let them incentivize you for 5 years. That's cool. You don't have to renew after that. You could if you want to, but establish something you can make money with and address food insecurity with. And go into business, even if all you're doing is selling some herbs, dehydrating some garlic and making a seasoning with it, okay? Look at your cottage food laws here. Look at any licensing you need. And file a Schedule F. File a tax return and add the Schedule F, Schedule for Farming. Y'all, when I say you can claim everything with farming, it's crazy. Everything. Everything. It's amazing. So please consider that. Please consider going into business. Yeah, I have a $50,000 a year funding model, agribusiness funding model for my backyard that I'm publishing within the next 3 months. That bigger one, the half-acre, $150,000 earnings model, just by growing seedlings in my high tunnel and selling them below market. So these are things I could probably do on the weekend or have the kids do it in the evening with me. We need to start, that's job security. Food will always have to be purchased by us. Now, as awesome as you think this information is, we're having the first annual Black Ag Summit. It's all things black farming. We are celebrating us because everybody stopped doing it. We had to start getting safe with what we described ourselves as. In the Black Ag Summit, it's okay to be a black farmer. That is September 19th. This year in Dallas, we will have the entire hotel to ourselves. We will have Watermelon Wonderland at the pool. We got an agribusiness vendor that sells watermelons. You could go into business selling watermelons where you are right now. You don't even have to be growing anything. So we're opening opportunities up like that. Yep. Opening opportunities up like that for people, all of us nationwide. We're going to be registering people for farm numbers on site, signing them up. NRCS will be there, signing them up for conservation contracts, planning the conservation contracts for them. Sis, I don't want you to get no $5,000 high tunnel. I need you to have a $50,000 contract. And for you to learn all of the conservation practices and start teaching other people. Okay? So let's not hoard information. I need bodies there. I need people there. I need good people there. Okay? Because, you know, some of us, we're predatorial. We're opportunistic. We hear this kind of information. We go get the grant. We brag on it. We ain't going to tell you how to get it. No, I need y'all growing food because they'll come down here asking for my greens and start no mess because they done shut everything down. I taught you how to grow greens and turnips, didn't I? Well, go on over there because you got a hot tunnel like me. Don't come up here with no mess, right? So here's a QR code to scan. Ooh. For the Black Ag Summit, it'll take you straight to tickets. Tickets are $225, but they include your room for both nights. Period. It's a 2-day event, 19th and the 20th. There's another package where you get the Black Ag hat and t-shirt, but that should take you straight to the ticket page. Is it working? Yes, yes. So the Black Ag Summit, share it with people. There are opportunities to even speak there. And speaking of speak, some of the cool things I learned about insulin resistance and food that I eat is, y'all know what the itis is? Thaddaus, you can't laugh. You can't laugh, babe.
Why can't I laugh?
You asleep.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. You asleep earlier, Muffin. Yes, you did go to sleep good. The fact that you don't remember it means I'm concerned about you having sleep apnea.
He was watching inside his eyes.
He was. No, you was doing that. So anyway, let me tell you something. That is a symptom. That is, okay, so when you eat carbs or sugar, it takes about between an hour and 3 hours to break down into sugar in your body. The reaction to that is to make you lethargic because it's in peril. Like, what the heck? What is all this going on? So it needs to put you to sleep to repair things. If you go, this is a challenge. Some of y'all probably can only handle a week. If you can go a week with no carbs and sugar, aches and pains disappear. I did it myself. Disappear. Stuff that I've been feeling for years, like my knee hurt a little bit, they go. and you can sit up and eat whatever you want, no carbs, no sugar, you don't get tired afterwards. I was like, okay, so I guess after I done ate all this tilapia, green beans with some cheese on it, garlic, and a salad, this was a lot. I'm gonna be tired. I wasn't. I was able to get up, go in the garden, work. I had more energy. I started losing the fat, okay? And you don't have to stay away from fat because healthy fat is good for you.
Right.
Things like avocado, butter. I consume this stuff. Cream, heavy cream. I just don't consume things like vegetable oil. It's done.
What about like avocado oil?
Avocado oil is what I cook with. Let me tell you what canola oil is. A real farmer knows a lot about this stuff. We just don't say nothing. Canola oil is mustard seed oil. That's all it is. It's a certain type of rapeseed.
So,
My name is Myron Williams. I'm a basic scientist. That's to say I do research on things like cells and genes and so forth. I'm working with an organization called the HBCU Green Fund now. She's almost 10 years old. It was focused initially on ensuring that HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, have facilities that are sustainable. That's to say in terms of energy usage, in terms of doing things like renewable energy, sourcing and that kind of thing, practices that save energy and provide for upgrading of buildings and such like. But we've also become interested in changing curricula, and in part because with the realization that climate change is real and it is caused by humans. It's taken a long time for it to happen. It's going to happen faster and faster. We need to train young people to think about how to fix the problem, or at least mitigate it, and want to try to institute some of the curricular kinds of activities, or at least opportunities for young people to become aware of things that people are doing. And we've also extended our focus very much to Africa, in part because Africa is the youngest continent on the planet. It's the continent it's the only continent that's still really growing in population. By I think 2050, the population of Africa is still expected to double, whereas in Europe it's probably will decrease. In North America it will stay about the same. Asia will increase a little bit. So Africa is the future in the context of the workforce, et cetera, et cetera. And we're not aware a lot of what's going on, but the impacts of climate change are already being felt there in very, very substantial ways, and people aren't very aware of it. So we're also focusing on a lot of activities in the African continent around things like regenerative agriculture, flood prevention, the whole host of challenges around climate change, environmental degradation, and sustainability. I thought I was going to leave earlier. Sister Keisha just sort of grabbed my attention. I should be right now in a session by Dr. Erica Hallman-Hill on community use of data. So the conference that's going on yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Monday at the Omni is the third annual Southeast Environmental Justice Summit. And Dr. Erica Hallman-Hill was giving a session right now about use of data for community development. So I'm pitching this at you in particular. I know you're an industrial engineer, but if you're doing data science is the buzzword right now. It's usually used by big industry and government and so forth, but we need to find ways to make sure that we not only can use the data for the benefit of our communities, but also have access to the data, understanding of the data, and the ability to actually collect it ourselves. So one of the projects that I have involves engaging elementary school kids to collect weather data. So getting accustomed to the idea of numerical recording information, and being able to compare it on databases. And we're also, it's a program we're calling Pan-Afriglobe, where we're trying to connect youth in the African world, that's to say North America, Africa, Caribbean, so that they can communicate directly with each other around what they're observing and how things are similar or different. So, like I said, my background is really basic science. I'm going to take another page out of Sister Keisha's book. I'm from Bermuda originally. My dad was the first person in my family to go to university. He went to Tuskegee Institute at the time, studied agriculture, came back, was a teacher, had me and us. Small place. My family moved to South Carolina when I was 2. We were chased out of Camden, South Carolina by the sheriff in late 60s. Early 60s. We lived in Ohio for about 4 years. We moved back to Bermuda when I was 9. And that's where I finished my primary and secondary education. So I have an international perspective in part from being offshore and being back and forth. But I remember before we moved back, we went to visit Tuskegee, and I remember being fascinated with the George Washington Carver Museum, and what all he did with peanut cropping and transformation of stuff. And I ended up doing my doctoral research on nitrogen fixation and crop rotation, which is a phenomenon that he first described, and talking about crop rotation, etc. I was working on it from the perspective of trying to understand the genes and molecules that the bacterium and the plant exchange with each other for the process to take place. So, although I was, and in fact, getting there, it was after I had spent a year after I finished my degree at Howard University, traveling in Europe and West Africa. We were living in DC. My father was killed in some of the urban violence that our communities suffer from. I wanted to get out the country, and I left with all my stuff, traveled around Europe and West Africa for a little more than a year. But it was in West Africa that I began to believe that the scientific approach to especially agriculture and industry is what black folks need to be able to equalize the playing field. So I went back to graduate school, worked on nitrogen fixation. I thought I was interested in agriculture, but as I like to say, I ended up doing nanogram per microliter science instead of kilogram per hectare. So I wasn't working with fields and crops. I was working with test tubes and little tiny things, understanding principles, and I do love it. But it's, as I was saying earlier, so much of that information ends up in libraries and doesn't seem to have any kind of practical application. So with the realization that climate change is real, I've been wanting to try to bring what I do know and think about, and that's sort of rigorous molecular chemical knowledge, to more things that are more applied, and to bring it in the context of our communities who are often lacking in that. So that's part of the reason why I'm here. And in fact, again, the way that I met Thad was at a group out of Cincinnati that was founded, I guess, by Janet was one of the founders.
Yes.
Yeah, who's the wife of a African-American gentleman who I actually met in Ghana when I was 21, and we've stayed friends since then. And again, it was a book group thinking about Afrocentric literature and development and so forth. So again, what I've been trying to do, so as I said, I've done a number of things, and I was interested in agriculture, but that's not where the money is in the research context, right? Most of the money is in NIH, medicine. Everybody, people, and I remember this is something Bill Clinton saying, even in his campaign, talking about research on plant stress, how ridiculous that was, right? People thinking of plant stress as, plants with psychological problems. Well, what they mean is drought stress, insect stress, those kinds of things, right? So it's a question of terms. But everyone knows someone who's sick. Everyone knows someone who's a doctor, or, has had an association with a doctor. And in fact, when I was a preteen, after having gone to Tuskegee, I wanted to be a scientist. And what they tell you as you go through high school, if you like science, that means you want to be a doctor. So I was pre-med when I started college, realized I couldn't stand the sight of blood, and sort of went off in another direction. But again, I do think a lot of the understanding of nature that we've acquired through a lot of this sort of laboratory stuff is really, really, really important. But unfortunately, it's become suspect in a lot of people's minds. Again, we were talking about the vaccine skepticism. Part of the reason it's become suspect is because it's costly. The people who pay for it are generally big corporations. They pay for the research. They're going to develop stuff that yields a profit. Okay? And that is oftentimes suspect. And, again, kind of by accident at the last forum, I ended up talking about how I'm in favor, in principle, of GMOs. Again, it's one of those things that people have this mental block about because the idea that it's unnatural and whatever else. It's just another method to extend to what humans have been doing for tens of thousands of years, selective breeding of plants to yield something that we like. Plants in general don't want to be eaten, so most plants make poisons. We, through breeding, have bred out most of the poisons. Maybe not sugar, because we really like sugar. But the GMO technology using recombinant methods are just faster ways than breeding to introduce specific genes. And there's nothing, so that's something we can talk about more broadly. The problem is the business model, whether somebody can own the seed that you are planting, right? And that's what most of the GMOs suggest, that if you plant a GMO seed, then you cannot harvest that seed and plant it again. You have to go back to them. That's a real problem, but that's not a biology problem. That's a law problem, okay? But certainly a lot of technologies have come along such that we're not very much in touch with the land and very much in touch with nature. Kids don't go outside. They're always on screens. So the importance of wanting everyone to start doing a little bit of agriculture the way everyone used to do a little bit of agriculture has in part to do with getting folks back outside and engaging with the real world. It's exercise. I mean, the idea that folks will get in their car, drive someplace to a gym, park close, pay money to go inside and go on a treadmill or something else when you can be outside in your backyard cleaning it up, right? It's not as pleasant, maybe, but it's more relevant. So that's one of the contexts in which I think engaging people in farming and urban farming in particular, some of our technologies allow us to be much more efficient. And I was looking when we were talking about the hydroponics. I have a little hydroponic system set up in my kind of apartment context, just a little plastic thing. It's not working it's actually quite green. It's really leggy. I'm growing lettuce and tomatoes and strawberries, but it's varied in terms of how effective it is. But yeah, so it's possible to grow a lot in a small space, either using higher tech mechanisms, which are more expensive on a proportional basis, or raised beds. One of the things that was discussed at the EJ meeting yesterday was, especially in urban areas, a lot of land is contaminated with lead or arsenic. Up in the west, not in the West End, Vine City, English Avenue, is a big lead contamination problem, so you can't really work with that land. And I hadn't realized, okay, if you do raised beds and you can bring in soil from somewhere else, certainly also enriching the soil by adding compost. And the largest growing waste stream on the planet is food waste. That's either tailings from food preparation, or leftover food, or stuff that goes rotten in the store. That, if it goes to a landfill, it's going to be buried. It's going to make methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's like 20 to 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. So methods to use food waste and sort of be internally cycling things is really important. Composting is relatively easy and straightforward. One of the other projects that I've been undertaking for a few years is for biogas. It's household scale biogas. So that same process that if you bury organic matter, and again, it won't happen with plastics, it won't happen with metals, and could happen a little bit with paper. In the absence of oxygen, microbes make methane, which is the same gas as natural gas, that will leak into the atmosphere and cause greater problems. So the idea of biogas is to, rather than letting it leak out, is that you capture it and you burn it for heat instead of gas that's mined out of from deep underground. In this country, it's done at wastewater processing plants, kind of behind the scenes. Nobody sees it, and you don't have access to it. Big industrial concerns, big farms, slaughterhouses, and that type of thing. What I'm trying to promote is household scale, where you would have a digester, maybe the size of this table, behind your kitchen. As you generate waste, cutting up vegetables, leftover food, instead of putting it in the garbage, letting it start to rot before it's collected the next week, you just put it in your digester, which you've initially filled with animal manure, because that's where the microbes that can do the process come from. It needs to be sort of a sealed container. As you put in food every day, you get out an equal volume of liquid fertilizer. So it's basically that same organic material that's been broken down into its component parts, which certainly include nitrogen compounds, phosphorus compounds. Not so sure about potassium. Those are the three big kind of things that one wants to add as fertilizer, but also small minerals and that type of thing that then you can then use for a garden. Yes?
That's referred to as compost tea, I think.
It's similar to compost tea.
Yeah, but it's much more powerful.
Well, so most of the literature, again, I came to this from my buddy in Ghana asking me to set something up at his guest house, and then started studying it. Most of the literature is either about getting rid of organic matter, wastewater processing, or generating energy, right, and looking for feedstocks. There's not that much that actually talks about how good it is as a fertilizer. Everybody says that it is, but what it actually has is not that much. So that's one of the projects that I'm sort of engaged on. And we got a small grant initially from Second Nature. We just got a bigger one from Southern SARE, Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, to build and promote these small-scale biogas digesters in the urban and Black South. So we set up one digester at Truly Living Well Center for Urban Agriculture last fall. It's there now. It's a bag-type digester. I have a colleague who's building one from IBC tanks and plastic tanks there this week. And we're trying to make this available and accessible to our communities so people are aware of it, but also to improve the design. China has 25 million, India has 4 million, mostly rural, and with the different aesthetic, shall we say, and a different kind of system. So we want to, say, what is it that would make people want to build these or to have these for themselves? In North America, it's much more problematic. Again, I've been focusing on Africa, in part because temperatures are higher. It's a warm weather process. Our digester wasn't functioning through the winter because it's too cold. It smells a little bit. Somebody's going to come for my garbage every Tuesday morning, whether I have any or not. I have gas piped into the house, and I don't have a farm. So, those are challenges to why it may be more problematic in the North American environment. But I think in certain circumstances, again, especially small farms, you have use for the third utility, which is the fertilizer. So, I think those were the points I wanted to mostly hit. Really thrilled that you guys are doing this, because I hadn't, until having this conversation with Thad a little less than a year ago, I'd never thought about appraisal and farming as being linked in any way. But we really need to link all these things together in a whole host of perspectives.
I hope you all have liked the programming. I'd like to thank our very, very special presenters, our host, Providence Missionary Baptist Church, Farmer Jeffrey Hicks, broker extraordinaire, farm manager, farm educator, Miss Keisha Cobb all the way from Little Rock, Arkansas, CEO of Farm Fortitude, Black Women in Ag, Black Men in Ag, and all the wonderful information she brought about how to get a farm number and regenerative farming practices and conservation practices. Dr. Myron Williams from Clark Atlanta University, blessing us, and all our other special esteemed guests. And I know you all been bouncing back and forth between conferences, and I'm very thankful that you felt like this was important enough to attend and support. This is kind of a model that I've been working on. They're using it some places across the country, and it's reframing our land, a vision for a faith-based, mixed-use, intergenerational development. I spoke to a group of pastors in Cincinnati this week, the Greater Cincinnati Faith Leaders, and we've been speaking to a couple of other groups across the country. Damn, he looked good. He's a good-looking guy right there. All right, I'm going here. Enough about him.
If you do say so.
Yeah. The church. Again, I've been working on that. Please, okay. You know he is really not working on me. So let me go back up here. The church holds untapped power, and you all are from Albany. Is it Albany or Albany?
That's it.
Albany. Okay. It's Albany. Okay. Albany. And so, and Jeffrey talked about earlier. We talked about Charles and Shirley Sherrod, and one of the things that Reverend Sherrod said is that all power is in the land, and I believe that, and ultimate power is with God. So in this vision is reconnecting, getting back to the soil, not just to the land, to the soil, and we can have a better quality of life. As we experienced in the garden today, we're walking around eating fruits, even eating the soil on the carrots. And so it was interesting to learn. Now I didn't venture off into eating the dirt on the carrots quite yet, but I'm getting there. It looked like it was good, and okay. So we're trying to get to the nutrients. So I'm just trying to listen and receive everything that's for us. But I do believe that with the intergenerational faith-based mixed-use development is an opportunity for us to reconnect and provide cooperative housing. If nothing this administration has done is to force us to know that we are not exempt and we all need each other in order to survive. So I believe that, and I think we can get back to that. That's how we grew up. We are a communal people. We are not built to be by ourselves, and I think together we are stronger. And part of that untapped power is black people lose $200 billion a year in undervaluation in real estate. Black farmers lose $200 billion a year in undervaluation. We lose $200 billion a year in heirs property, and the black church loses $500 billion a year in undervaluation. So it would take 500 years for us to close the wealth gap. It would take $200 billion for us to close the poverty gap. I believe we got a shot at doing a little bit of damage to both if we can do it together and improve the quality of life, improve our health with the nutrients from the farm. There was one of these conferences we went to, they were talking about pharmacy, F-A-R-M-A-C-Y, improving our health as Sister Keisha had demonstrated and working with her diabetes through eating better. I think we all have the opportunity to be able to do that. And I'm excited to be able to do it from my lane and perspective. I believe in everybody staying in their lane and doing what God gifted them to do. And He blessed me to be able to do this in the appraisal space. And most people don't understand how it connects. Like Myron said, he didn't see how it connected. I ran into Jeffrey at the beginning of the year. He didn't understand what farming had to do with appraising. Well, over 65% of all appraisers are over 50 years old and less than 7% are under 35. Those demographics are parallel with farming. They are the two least diverse professions in the country. They're 1 and 2, farming and appraising. We don't do that. And just to illustrate that point, in Cincinnati this week, I presented to pastors and I offered $100 to any pastor that had a black appraiser appraise their church. I walked away with the $100. I was on the radio the following day and I opened it up to the entire city, any denomination of church, any bank that funded a church to utilize a black appraiser to appraise a church. I still got that same $100, which I needed to get back home, so I was pretty safe making that bet. However, again, that's the illustration all across the country that we are underrepresented in this space, and we need participation, and we can eliminate a lot of discrimination, or it's not even really discrimination because it's systemic and it's embedded by updating the appraisal model through the evidence-based, data-driven analysis using data science. And so some of the things that we're working on in the space is utilizing technology for the next generation. So drones, we're utilizing drones in farming and appraising. You can use drones to spray crops, geospatial measuring. You can use them to herd cattle. You can use them to pick fruits. You can use them to do the row crops with the robotics. So there's all kind of opportunities. We also utilize them to do inspections. We're teaching them to be able to do that. So I'm excited about that work. Talked a little bit about land trust. The land trust is an opportunity to be able to do cooperative development. Another thing that Charles and Shirley Sherrod did is they formed the first land trust here in the country in 1969, or maybe it was early 70, and they went 1970, 71, something like that. They went to Israel to visit the kibbutz, which is in my next slide, to learn about cooperative living, and that is the model that they used when they bought 6,000 acres in southwest Georgia, and they ended up losing the 6,000 acres due to not being able to secure funding that everybody else was getting from the USDA and the FSA. And so 15 to 20 years later, they were part of the first Pickford settlement lawsuit, and they got $15 million. However, what they lost was the velocity of money and the opportunity in between. And so they bought come on, my Albany people, what's the farm down there? Resort. They bought Resort, 1,600 acres down there. I was just testing y'all and make sure y'all was paying attention. Y'all passed. Okay. So they bought that, and what's the other thing down there, Jeffrey? Southwest Georgia?
Southwest Georgia project.
And so, they have that project, and they produce pecans, and Jeffrey is a farm educator there. So again, we'd like to use this model to create housing as well as improve food quality and food security. So the idea is to utilize HOA fees to pay for a farm manager so people can have fresh farm to table food, but also use the cooperative model to buy down the cost of the land and change the land trust model to be beneficial, so we have shared stewardship, and it's a way to gain revenue long term for the land trust, but also to get housing for people, and they're able to build equity. A lot of the land trust models now don't necessarily promote wealth building, but they do act as a form of rent control to keep your costs down, and stabilize. But it's done differently all over the country, and we've been blessed to be able to get around the country to see the different models and try to adopt best practices. And what we want to do here with Jeffrey and Providence is an urban model to build housing around the farm out back that we experience today, and utilizing the farm as the backyard and the community basis. And one of the things to be able to do that is the raised beds. So again, it helps with the intergenerational and people being able to connect. This is an illustration that I like to use, that I got from a good friend of mine. This is it illustrates the strength of land leasing and the power. This is Hong Kong in 1890 or 1897. So do you all remember, it was 1898. Do you all remember in 1997 when China got Hong Kong back from Great Britain? That was because they had a 99-year land lease. So this is what it looked like before. That's what it looked like when it reverted back. It was worth trillions of dollars. So, but China being China and being as benevolent as they are, they offered some new land leases to Great Britain, since they had already invested so heavily. So they leased some of it and they sold some of it. Point being, it's an opportunity for us to build wealth long term and have sustainability, which we tend not to be able to do because we're constantly under duress. But if we start to work and move collectively and think more progressively, we can achieve that. And just look at what happened in 99 years. This just speaks to everything I just talked about, but it also added in a rural setting, like a urgent care or a model to be able to add for health and wellness. These are the high tunnels that Keisha talked about, and if you see the churches in the background, and again, it's putting. I'm saying church, but here Jeffrey is a part of the mayor's faith-based led initiative. So again, it's about the community the faith-based community being at the forefront of the development. This is a small-scale hydroponics facility where you can do the regenerative growth, and it helps if you don't have to worry about the different factors that Keisha talked about. You can make that so it's scalable. And the young lady there, she's doing it in her house, and she talked about the lighting. And with this method of farming, Jeffrey doesn't necessarily like the taste of the food that's produced here. Some people can't tell the difference. It's just a matter of preference. But when you're fighting food insecurity and sovereignty, it's definitely, as my grandma would say, oatmeal beat no meal all day long. So this is an opportunity to be able to do that. And this is another little picture of the housing with the church in the background. So again, making it intergenerational and faith-based, because the church is the largest black landholder in the country. And if you look at the farming, they kind of go hand in hand. So this is what we're doing across the country, but we're starting here. And unlike Keisha, we haven't been able to secure any funding, so we have to get it out of the mud. And how we get it out of the mud is to provide market studies and market analysis for these types of projects. And this is very important because a lot of times I've seen churches, they want to do something and they don't know what to do and how to do it, and they don't do it strategically, and it ends up stalling out, or somebody runs away with the money, or something happens that shouldn't happen just due to lack of planning and execution. And again, I try to stay in my lane, and this is one of my lanes that I've been blessed to be able to work in and make a difference. So I'm excited to do it. We also do reconsideration of value, which is what we're really going to talk about in these last couple of minutes. And reconsideration of value, I gave you those numbers about how we're disproportionately impacted by undervaluation. And reconsideration of value is important because it gives us the chance to articulate what actually happened, or that we feel undervalued, but it can't be an emotional argument. It can't be, I think, I feel. It has to be articulated with information. And part of that information, if you listen to the appraisal community, there's no appraisal discrimination or appraisal disparity. I would beg to differ with them on so many levels as I travel the country. But then what it doesn't do is it doesn't accuse the appraiser of racism or something nefarious. But what it does do is ask them to be able to explain, and you need to be able to articulate that argument. And so what happens is also they put the onus of explaining it back on the consumer, which is not right and it's unfair. And this administration just rescinded reconsideration of value as part of rescinding the PAVE initiative. They did that in March. They only started using reconsideration of value last year around October, November, I don't know. But it's very new, so nobody has the process really ingrained, and the processes that they do have are ineffective and don't really go far enough. Who has the really best process is the VA. So this process grew out of the VA because the VA used to care more about the veteran than it did about the bank, the lender, the realtor, or the contractor. And the VA also, after caring about the veteran, cared about the appraiser. They're the only group that protected the appraiser and allowed the appraiser to do their job. So most appraisers suffer from post-traumatic stress, but some of it's to their own doing. However, you won't need as many appraisers moving forward because of the technology. And of course, the initiatives that are being so-called initiatives that are being administered, to me, aren't effective, and they're teaching us outdated, antiquated methodology. And so what we want to do is, let me say, I don't want a seat at the table anymore. I want to make a table for us to be able to move forward because I don't trust them with the next generation. And the efforts that I've seen have been very disingenuous and insincere and
redundant.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
That is, as a consumer, all of us sitting around the table, what situation prompts a reconsideration of value? Because using that term reconsideration of value, kind of help me understand, when do I need a reconsideration of value?
Glad you asked that question. So a lot of times when we are trying to tap into our equity, if we are fortunate enough to have a house or have some property, or get a farm loan, we are undervalued by those numbers that I talked to. So you can't tap into the equity. We have to actually sell to recognize. Undervalued by appraisers and by the bank or the lenders. And so you can ask for the reconsideration of value at that point. The only time we are overvalued is when we're paying property taxes. And then when we're paying property taxes, we can ask for a reconsideration of value on the other side because you appeal your property taxes because but we would be okay if I could take the equity out at this level that you taxing me, it would be okay. But I am not ever going to be able to do that, or historically I have not been able to do that. So that's where you get They call that a property tax appeal. I lump it all under reconsideration of value. And it's important that we do this and we recognize it because it empowers us. And most of us do not know. I gave you that illustration about the church. And so it's not extreme. It's a real number that people aren't able to tap into or take advantage of. So that's when it's utilized.
Does the qualification or certification of an appraiser that a bank uses as opposed to the state? I mean,
so
are there different people doing the evaluation?
Yeah, they're different people doing a different valuation. So when they're doing it for property taxes, they're doing like a whole block. And they're taking everything in the blender and sort of pulling it out. But they are supposedly utilizing data science with that. However, they're not looking at your house specifically, so you can specifically look at it. And so here's another misnomer that black people do not appeal their property taxes because they think it's going to take their property value down. And over 90% of all of my clients in my whole career were not us appealing their property taxes, and we do not appeal our property taxes. It's not going to take down your value. And then the other thing is, if you got a leak or you got something wrong with your house, let's take a picture of it because that's a cost to cure, and that's a depreciation factor that will bring your property down. And when they're doing a mass appraisal, they're not able to look inside and see. And I promise you, you might not get what you asked for, but you will get something. And whatever you're able to get, then you're locked in at that basis. So if you've owned your house for a very long time, you're like double penalized because you can't tap into your full equity, and then you're getting overtaxed, and then you're not. We just talked about the streets and what's going on. Those are where your tax dollars are supposed to go. And then we get a functionally obsolescent street that's not big enough to get a bus and an emergency vehicle down. These are engineers. These are people that are supposed to be looking at us, and this is what our tax dollars are for. Now you're going to take our tax dollars and have to redo it, wasting our tax dollars on something. Again, measure twice and cut once. Don't talk about, oh, I can fix it. We got to pay for you to go back and fix it. They're not doing that in Alpharetta. They're not doing that in Sandy Springs. So why should we get any less? But that's where policy comes in at. So it's important to push the reconsideration of value policy, county, city, state, and federal. I presented to the Appraisal Foundation Board of Trustees a month ago in Cincinnati. And when I had talked to them earlier, they were talking about, oh, well, the GSCs are taking care of it. Oh, that's something the banks is doing. Everybody thinks somebody else is doing it and nobody is taking care of it. And it disproportionately impacts us. And in that disproportionality, here, this is a FHFA paper that was on the website in November. You can't find this on the website. And what this paper says is only 10% of all appraisals done used a market conditions adjustment. Now, this isn't a guesstimate. They took a little less than 1 million appraisals and 4 million comparable sales. That's the data science I refer to. And they found that only 10% of all appraisals used a market conditions adjustment. Well, if only 10% is using them, that's 90% that's not using them. And who is disproportionately impacted by that 90% not being used? Us. And what that does is giving us an undervaluation. So I talked about a little bit earlier about, for you all that missed it, if you got an appraisal done today, the bottom of the appraisal form is dated 2005. How many phones has Apple had since 2005? 16. And so they're still using the outdated form, which plays back into the racism and the antiquation, and the people that they're training today to do that will not be needed or necessary. And so again, we're always playing catch up and always playing defense, and that's why I felt compelled to start the organization, to do what I do and try to empower us. But the other piece to this is this form is about to change in 2026. And so when it changes, appraisers are not even going to be up to speed on making those changes and understand this appraisal form. So a lot of the older appraisers don't want to deal with this and will be transitioning out of the business. How is it going to be for the consumer to still be able to make his own argument to defend an appraisal that appraisers aren't even going to be familiar with? So again, it's incumbent to have subject matter experts. Sometimes you have realtors or you have lenders helping to articulate these arguments. They're in the field, but like I talked about, staying in your lane, this is not their lane. And I've been at seminars and I've heard appraisers even give very bad information to us about how to do a reconsideration of value, and it absolutely infuriates me. And so this is why part of the work that we do, and this is why this is so important to me, and this is why I'm in the places is that I go, to the community, to the churches, to the farmers, and this is why we put on these type of information sessions.